The blizzard hit without warning, a white wall of fury that swallowed the highway whole. One minute I was cruising down a remote stretch of road in northern Montana. The next my world was reduced to a swirling vortex of snow and wind. My car skidded, spun, and finally came to a dead stop in a snowdrift, the engine sputtering into silence. The silence that followed was heavier, more profound than anything I'd ever known. Stranded, the word echoed in the sudden, bone-chilling cold of the cabin. My phone had no signal, of course. The sensible thing was to stay put, wait it out. But as hours bled into an eternity and the car grew colder than a tomb, a primal fear began to gnaw at me. The wind outside wasn't just howling anymore. It was screaming. And mixed within that scream, I started to hear something else. A rhythmic, crunching sound. Footsteps. At first, I dismissed it as my mind playing tricks, the product of cold and anxiety. But the sound grew closer, more distinct crunch. 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 It was slow, deliberate, and heavy. Too heavy for any animal I could think of. I peered through the frost-laced windshield, my breath misting in the frigid air. The visibility was almost zero, just a shifting curtain of white. But then, a shape began to resolve in the chaos. Tall, impossibly tall, and gaunt. It moved with an unnatural, jerky gait, its long limbs bending at angles that were just wrong. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the screaming wind. This wasn't a person. It couldn't be. The figure stopped about 50 feet from my car, a dark silhouette against the blinding snow. It just stood there, motionless, as if it were watching me, waiting. I couldn't see a face, no features, just this towering, skeletal outline. A cold dread, colder than the blizzard itself, wased over me. I'd read the old stories, the local legends whispered around campfires, tales of a spirit born of starvation and winter, a creature with an insatiable hunger. The Wendigo. I ducked down below the dashboard, my body trembling uncontrollably. Every instinct screamed at me to stay hidden, to not make a sound. The crunching started again, but this time it was faster, circling the car. I could hear it sniffing, long, guttural inhalations. It sounded impossibly close. It scraped against the metal of the driver's side door, a sound like nails dragging down a chalkboard that sent shivers down my spine. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would go away, that this was all just a fever dream brought on by the cold. But then came a new sound, a low, rasping voice that seemed to whisper directly into my ear, even through the thick metal and glass. It wasn't speaking words, but it was mimicking something. It was mimicking the voice of the radio dispatcher I'd heard an hour before my car died. The same the same cadence, but twisted, distorted, filled with a hollow hunger that made my blood run cold. It was learning. It was luring. The scraping stopped. The whispering ceased. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind and my own ragged breathing. I risked a peek over the dashboard. The silhouette was gone. Relief, so potent it almost made me dizzy, flooded through me. Maybe it had lost interest. Maybe it had moved on. Slowly, cautiously, I sat up, my eyes scanning the whiteout in every direction. Nothing. Just the endless, swirling snow. I let out a shaky breath, the tension in my shoulders easing just a fraction. That's when my rear window shattered. A shower of safety glass exploded inwards, and a long, gray, stick-like arm shot into the car. It wasn't an arm. Not really. It was more like a gnarled tree branch, tipped with yellowed, talon-like claws. It flailed wildly, blindly, clawing at the headrests, ripping the upholstery. I scrambled over the center console and into the passenger seat, pressing myself against the door as far as I could get. The thing outside let out a shriek of frustration, a sound that was a horrific mix of a human scream and an animal's cry of rage. It pulled its limb back out, and then the car began to rock violently, back and forth, as if a giant hand was shaking it. The rocking was rhythmic, powerful, and with each lurch, I could hear the groaning of metal. It It was trying to flip the car, to crack it open like a nut. Panic gave way to a desperate survival instinct. I had to get out. I had to run, while the car was being shaken from the driver's side. I fumbled with the passenger door handle. It was frozen shut. I slammed my shoulder against it. Once, twice, a third time with a desperate sob. It burst open and I fell out into the deep snow. The cold, a brutal shock to my system. I didn't look back. Just ran. I plunged into the blizzard, the snow up to my thighs. Each step a monumental effort. The wind tore at me, stinging my face, but the fear propelled me forward. Behind me, I heard a thunderous crash as my car was finally overturned, followed by that same unearthly shriek, this time closer, much closer. I ran blindly, with no sense of direction, just away from the crunching footsteps that were now pounding through the snow behind me. I could hear its breathing, a harsh, wheezing sound that was getting louder with every second. It was toying with me. It could have caught me in an instant, but it was drawing out the chase, savoring the fear. My lungs burned. My legs felt like lead. I stumbled and fell, face first into the snow. I rolled over, exhausted, defeated, and there it was, looming over me. It was worse than I could have ever imagined. Its skin was the color of gray, decaying bark stretched taut over a frame of bones that seemed ready to burst through. Its head was like that of a starved stag, with jagged, broken antlers, but its face was a horrifying parody of a human's. Sunken, black eyes burned with an ancient, malevolent intelligence, and its mouth was a lipless slash filled with yellowed, pointy teeth. A foul, sweet smell of decay and frost rolled off it in waves. It lowered its head, its cavernous mouth opening, and it spoke. But this time, it wasn't the radio it was my own voice. It whispered my name, perfectly mimicking my own terrified whimper from moments before. As it lunged, a sudden, blinding light cut through the blizzard. A roaring sound filled the air, and the Wendigo recoiled, shielding its terrible face with one of its spindly arms. It was the headlights of a snowplow, its massive blade just feet from where I lay. The driver must have seen the commotion. The creature let out a final, piercing hiss of pure hatred that was nearly lost in the engine's roar, and then it simply dissolved back into the swirling snow, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The plow driver, a man with a weathered face and terrified eyes, helped me into his warm cab. He didn't ask what I saw. He just said, "Some storms. They bring things out of the woods, things that are best left there." I never drove that road again. Sometimes, on cold winter nights, when the wind howls, I think I can hear it. A faint crunching in the snow, and a whisper in my own voice, calling my name from the darkness. The hunger of the Wendigo is eternal, and it knows my name now. It's waiting for the next blizzard. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows. Stay safe out there. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We've got some incredible stories lined up for you today that I seriously can't wait to share. But before we dive into all that, I'm super curious about something. Where in the world are you watching this from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And just for fun, let me know what time it is for you. It's always so amazing to see how our community spans across so many different time zones. It really feels like we're all connected, no matter where we are. Alright, let's get into it. The sun was painting the Palo Duro Canyon in shades of deep orange and purple, a sight that usually brought me a sense of profound peace. I'd been hiking these trails for years, but that evening, something was different. A strange stillness had fallen, the kind that precedes a storm, but the sky was clear. The usual evening chorus of insects and birds was gone, replaced by an unnerving silence that seemed to press in on all sides. I shrugged it off as just an odd atmospheric quirk and continued my descent on the lighthouse trail. That's when I heard it, a faint, whistling sound, thin and reedy, echoing off the canyon walls. It wasn't a bird, and it definitely wasn't another hiker. The tune was disjointed, almost melodic, but broken, like someone was trying to remember a song they'd long forgotten. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. My pace quickened. The beautiful canyon suddenly felt vast and menacing, its ancient rock formations like silent, watching giants. The whistling grew closer, now punctuated by a dry, scraping sound. It was the sound of something heavy being dragged over rock and sand. Ispunar on my heart, hammering against my ribs. Nothing. Just the empty trail behind me, winding through the tall grasses and juniper trees. I told myself I was just tired, that the fading light was playing tricks on my senses. But the feeling of being watched was undeniable, a primal instinct screaming at me that I was no longer alone. I started jogging, my boots kicking up dust. The scraping sound kept pace with me, just out of sight. A persistent, rhythmic drag. Scrape, drag, scrape. It was close, too close. I risked another look back, and that's when I saw it. For a split second, silhouetted against the last sliver of the setting sun, a figure stood at the bend in the trail I had just passed. It was tall, unnaturally so, with limbs that seemed too long for its body, bent at angles that were just wrong. It was hunched over, and even from a distance, I could feel its gaze locked onto me. My blood ran cold. It wasn't human. Before I could even process what I was seeing, it dropped to all fours and disappeared into the tall grass with a speed that defied logic. Panic seized me. I wasn't jogging anymore. I was running, a full-blown, desperate sprint. I didn't care about the uneven terrain or the risk of twisting an ankle. All that mattered was getting back to the parking lot, back to the safety of my car. The whistling had stopped, but now, a new sound joined the scraping. A low, guttural chattering, like a series of clicks and pops made deep in a throat. It was a sound of imitation, a grotesque mimicry of human speech, but twisted and animalistic. It was following me, moving through the brush parallel to the trail, easily keeping pace. I could hear the rustle of the grass, the snap of twigs under its weight. It was toying with me. I could see the faint lights of the parking lot ahead, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like lead, but I pushed harder. The chattering grew louder, closer, right behind me. I didn't dare look back again. I knew what I would see. The scraping was no longer dragging. It was the sound of claws on stone, scrambling, gaining on me. Then, I heard a voice, a perfect imitation of my own. "Why are you running?" It cut out the words clear and calm, yet utterly terrifying in their mimicry. It sent a shockwave of pure fear through my body. How did it know my voice? I burst out of the trailhead and onto the asphalt of the parking lot, fumbling frantically for my keys. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely fit the key into the lock. The chattering and scraping sounds stopped abruptly at the edge of the trail, as if an invisible line had been drawn. I threw myself into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and locked Italiano. My breath came in ragged gasps. I stared into the darkness where the trail began, my eyes scanning for any sign of movement. For a long moment, there was nothing but the sound of my own frantic breathing. Then, two pinpricks of light, like reflected eyeshine, appeared in the darkness. They weren't from an animal. They were too high off the ground, too steady, and they glowed with a faint, self-contained luminescence. The figure slowly emerged from the shadows. It stood upright again, its elongated frame unfolding into the dim light. It was gaunt, covered in what looked like patches of mangy hide and dark. Leathery skin stretched tight over its bones. Its face was a nightmare, colossal sunken sockets, holding those glowing eyes, a flattened nose, and a wide mouth that stretched into a horrifying grin, revealing rows of sharp, uneven teeth. It just stood there, at the edge of the light, watching me. Slowly, it raised a long, three-fingered hand and lifted it to its mouth. The whistling started again, the same broken, haunting melody. It was a mocking tune, a chilling farewell. It held my gaze for what felt like an eternity before it turned, its joints cracking audibly, and melted back into the impenetrable darkness of the Palo Duro Canyon. I didn't wait to see if it would come back. I slammed the car into reverse and sped out of that parking lot, not looking back until the canyon was just a dark shape in my rearview mirror. I've never gone back, and I never will. Some nights, when the wind whistles just right, I hear that same tune, and I know that the thing from the canyon remembers me. And it's waiting. Thanks for listening to my story. If you want more tales from the dark corners of the world, make sure to subscribe. Stay safe out there. The blizzard hit us on the third day. We were a four-man fire team special operations, tasked with tracking a hostile entity deep in the Canadian wilderness. Intel was sketchy, a string of disappearances from remote logging camps, whispers of something tall and fast moving through the trees. We were the solution to a problem nobody wanted to name. The snow was relentless, a blinding white wall that swallowed sound and froze the world. Sergeant Miller was on point, a man carved from granite and ice. Then there was me, Corporal Davis, and two privates, fresh-faced but tough, named Jensen and Cole. We found the first set of tracks just after dawn. They were wrong. Deep, oblong impressions in the snow, too far apart for any man. Miller knelt, his gloved hand hovering over one. He looked back at us, his face grim. "Whatever this is," he grunted, "it's big, and it's moving fast." We followed them for hours, a silent procession through the frozen forest. The wind howled, a mournful cry that seemed to mimic the thing we were hunting. The tracks led us in a straight line, over fallen logs, through dense thickets, never deviating. It was as if the obstacles weren't even there. That's when Jensen pointed. "Sarge, look. Up ahead." The line of tracks just stopped. Not gradually, not like it had wandered off. They just ended, abruptly, in the middle of a small, snow-covered clearing. It was bizarre. Miller walked to the last print, crouching low. We all gathered around, our breath pluming in the frigid air. The last impression was deep, as if something had launched itself with immense force. But there were no corresponding landing prints. Nothing. Just pristine, unbroken snow, stretching out 4 yards in every direction. "Where did it go?" Cole whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Miller stood up, his gaze sweeping the canopy above. The trees were skeletal, their branches heavy with snow. "Up," he said, his voice a low growl. We all looked up, our rifles instinctively rising. The idea was absurd. Nothing could leap that high, that far. But the evidence was right there at our feet. The silence that followed was heavier than the snow, thick with a dread that was colder than the wind. We were tracking something that didn't play by the rules of nature. We decided to make camp before we lost the light completely. The temperature was dropping fast. We cleared a small area, set up a perimeter, and got a fire going. The flickering flames cast dancing, monstrous shadows on the trees around us. The woods felt alive, watching. We ate our rations in silence, each man lost in his own thoughts, the mystery of the tracks hanging over us. Sleep came in shifts, but it wasn't restful. Every snap of a twig, every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. My turn on watch was from 2 to 4. The fire had died down to glowing embers, and the world was bathed in the pale, ethereal light of the moon. That's when I heard it. A faint sound carried on the wind. It was a soft, rhythmic scraping. I strained my ears, peering into the darkness beyond our camp. The sound grew louder, closer. Scrape, drag, scrape, drag. It was coming from the trees, high up. My heart hammered against my ribs. I woke Miller with a gentle shake. He was instantly alert, grabbing his rifle. "What is it, Davis?" he hissed. "Listen," I whispered back. He heard it too. His eyes widened. It sounded like claws on bark, a slow, deliberate ascent, and it was moving from tree to tree, circling our camp. We woke. The others, 4 of us, stood back to back, weapons raised, scanning the dark canopy. The scraping sound was all around us now, sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right, sometimes directly overhead. It was toying with us, letting us know it was there, that it had us surrounded from above. We never saw a thing. Just the occasional shower of snow falling from a disturbed branch. The psychological toll was immense. We were elite soldiers, trained for any combat situation on the ground. But this was different. This was a horror story come to life. As the first hints of dawn painted the sky in shades of gray and purple, the scraping stopped who's like that. The silence was almost as terrifying. We waited, tense and exhausted, until the sun was fully up. Miller made the call. "Pack it up. We're moving." There was no more talk of tracking. This was now a mission of survival. As we were breaking camp, Cole let out a strangled cry. We rushed to his side. He was pointing at a tall pine tree at the edge of our clearing, about 30 feet up. Something was wedged between two large branches. It was a tattered piece of a flannel shirt, the same kind worn by the loggers who had gone missing. But that wasn't the horrifying part. Just above the shirt, carved deep into the bark, were frantic, desperate scratch marks. Below it, something was smeared across the trunk, a dark, frozen stain that dripped down the bark in a grotesque icicle. We knew, without a doubt, what it was, even though we had been told not to expect any. It wasn't just a stain. It was a message. We moved out at a double-time pace, leaving the chilling tableau behind. We didn't talk. The only sounds were our boots crunching in the snow and our own ragged breathing. Every shadow seemed to hold a tall, emaciated figure. Every gust of wind sounded like a whispered name. We felt its presence constantly, a cold weight on the back of our necks. It was always just out of sight, in the trees, in the air. It never touched the ground. We passed another clearing and Jensen froze, his face pale. He pointed to the snow. There, in the center of the clearing, was a single, perfect footprint, identical to the ones from yesterday. Just one. As if it had dropped from the sky to stand there for a moment, observing our path, before launching itself back into the canopy. It was taunting us, showing us that we couldn't escape. It was always ahead of us, behind us, above us. That night, we didn't dare make a fire. We huddled together for warmth in a shallow depression, our bodies aching with cold and exhaustion. The scraping sound returned, closer this time, more aggressive. It was accompanied by a new soundalo, guttural clicking, like a starving animal chattering its teeth. Suddenly, a heavy object landed in the snow right beside us with a soft thud. We scrambled back, rifles aimed. It was a deer carcass, or what was left of it. It was completely stripped of flesh, the bones picked clean and polished, arranged in a way that was disturbingly deliberate. It was another warning, a display of power. Miller's voice was strained. "Stay together no matter what. Stay in the light when it comes." We endured the rest of the night in a state of pure terror, listening to the creature circling above, its clicks and scrapes the soundtrack to our worst nightmare. When dawn finally broke, we ran. We abandoned all pretense of tactical movement. We just ran, blindly, desperately, through the frozen hellscape. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs screamed in protest. We didn't know if it was following. We didn't dare look back. We burst out of the tree line and saw the faint glimmer of the access road where we'd been dropped off. It was miles away, but it was there. Hope, a feeling I thought I'd lost forever, surged through me. We made it to the extraction point hours later, looking like ghosts. We were alive, but something inside each of us had been broken in that forest. On the flight back, nobody spoke. We just stared out the windows, forever scanning the trees below. We filed our report back an inconclusive hostile entity, origin unknown. How could we explain what we'd experienced? That we were hunted by something that defied gravity, something that lived in the treetops and never touched the ground. They wouldn't have believed us. But we knew. We knew that deep in the northern woods, a hungry, ancient thing is still out there, waiting for the snow to fall, and it's always looking up. The drive from Dallas back to my small hometown was always a long, lonely stretch, especially once you left the bright city lights behind. For Thanksgiving, though, it was a trip I looked forward to, a straight shot through miles of dark, empty Texas landscape. The road was a familiar friend, or so I thought. This year, something was different. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. It was just after midnight when I saw it. Up ahead, silhouetted by my headlights, a figure stood on the shoulder of the road. It looked like a man, but something was terribly off. He was unnaturally still, his limbs long and gaunt, bent at angles that didn't seem human. Primera slowed down, my heart starting to thump against my ribs. My first thought was that it was an accident victim, someone who needed help. But as I got closer, a primal fear, cold and sharp, seized me. The figure wasn't just standing there, it was hunched over, its head cocked to one side, as if listening to something far away. It was tall, impossibly so, and its clothes, if you could call them that, looked like tattered rags that barely clung to its skeletal frame. The closer I got, the less human it appeared. The proportions were all wrong. Its arms were too long, its legs too thin, and its head seemed to sit awkwardly on a neck that was far too slender to support it. My foot hovered over the brake, but a voice in my head screamed at me not to stop. Don't stop. Don't ever stop. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. As my car drew level with the figure, it slowly, deliberately, turned its head. The movement was jerky, unnatural, like a puppet on a string. My headlights illuminated its face, and what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my days. It wasn't a face. It was a distorted mask of human features stretched over something else. The eyes were deep-set, black pits that seemed to swallow the light. The mouth was a lipless slash, frozen in a silent, predatory grin. But the worst part, the detail that made my blood run cold, was that it had my brother's eyes. The same deep blue, the same familiar shape. It was impossible. A trick of the light, a figment of my tired imagination. My brother was waiting for me at home, safe. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, the engine roaring in protest. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror, but I could feel its gaze burning into the back of my head. 4 miles, I felt like I was being watched. The dark, empty road no longer felt familiar. It felt like a trap. Every shadow seemed to morph and shift. Every rustle of the wind sounded like footsteps running just behind my car. I drove faster than I ever had before, my mind racine. What was that thing? The image of its face, of those stolen eyes, was seared into my brain. The grin, wide and mocking, promised a horror I couldn't comprehend. The miles crawled by. I kept glancing at my phone, willing a signal to appear, desperate to call my brother, to hear his voice and prove my mind was playing tricks on me. But there was nothing, just static and the endless, oppressive darkness outside my windows. Then I heard a sound, a faint scratching. It started at the rear of the car, a light, rhythmic scrape. Scrape, scrape, scrape. I told myself it was a branch, a piece of debris from the road, but the sound grew louder, more intense. It moved from the trunk up the side of the car, toward the roof. It was the sound of long, sharp claws dragging against metal. My breath hitched in my throat. It was on my car. That thing was on my car. I could hear it now, a low, guttural breathing, punctuated by the scraping of its claws. It was crawling over the roof, its weight making the car's frame groan. I was trapped in a metal box, hurtling through the darkness, with a nightmare clinging to the outside. I started swerving, hoping to shake it off, but the scratching only grew more frantic, more aggressive. A loud thud echoed from directly above my head, as if it had slammed its fist, or something worse, onto their roof. I screamed, a raw, terrified sound that was swallowed by the roar of the engine. I risked a glance upward at my sunroof. For a horrifying second, I saw a shape silhouetted against the faint moonlight, along emaciated hand with fingers like talons pressing against the glass. The glass creaked under the pressure. It was trying to get in. I pushed the accelerator to the floor, my car fishtailing on the empty road. The creature on top shrieked. A sound that was a horrifying mix of a coyote's howl and a human scream of agony. It was a sound of pure malice. I had to get it off. I had to. Up ahead, I saw the familiar green sign for the next town, a small beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. Civilization Lights. People. I aimed the car toward the exit, my hands shaking so violently I could barely keep it on the road. As I took the off-ramp, the scratching stopped. The weight on the roof seemed to lift. I didn't dare believe it was gone. I kept driving, my eyes scanning every mirror, every shadow. I didn't slow down until I was in the center of the small town, bathed in the comforting glow of streetlights. Primera pulled over, my body trembling uncontrollably, and sat there for a long time, just breathing. When I finally got out to inspect the car, my heart stopped. The roof was covered in long, deep scratches that had torn through the paint and down to the bare metal. On the passenger side window, there was a single, greasy handprint. It was too large to be human, with fingers that were impossibly long and thin. As I stared at it, my phone finally buzzed to life. It was a text from my brother. "Hey, you almost here?" Mom's worried. "You won't believe the weirdest thing. Just saw a huge coyote in the backyard. It was just standing there. Watching the house. I never told my family what happened on that road. How could I explain that the thing I saw wasn't just some animal, but a predator wearing a mask of my brother's features? I made it home for Thanksgiving, but the holiday felt hollow. Every time I looked at my brother, I saw those soulless, black pits staring back at me from the roadside. The drive back to Dallas was in broad daylight, on a different, busier highway. But even now, years later, I can't drive at night on a lonely road. I can still hear the scratching on the roof and the sound of that terrible, inhuman shriek. I know it's still out there, waiting in the darkness along the Texas highways, looking for its next victim, perhaps wearing a face that you know and love. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had a strange encounter on a desolate road, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe out there. The old-timers have a saying. Silence in the forest means one of two things. Either the weather's about to turn something fierce, or something big is hunting. But there's a third kind of silence, a wrong silence, that the old stories warn you about. It's a silence where it feels like the woods themselves are holding their breath, waiting for something to pass. I'm a trapper. I've lived in these northern woods my whole life, and I thought I knew every sound, every shadow. I was wrong. It was late autumn, the air sharp with the promise of the first heavy snow. I was checking my line deep in the back country, a good 10 miles from the nearest logging road. The day had been normal. Squirrels chattering, jays squawking, the rustle of unseen things in the underbrush. But as the sun started to dip below the ridgeline, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange, the woods fell quiet. Not just quiet, silent. The kind of silence that presses in on your ears. I paused, hand on the stock of my rifle, and listened. Nothing. No birds. No squirrels. Even the wind, which had been whispering through the pines all day, had died. It was unnatural. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine. I told myself it was just the evening settling in, but my gut screamed otherwise. This was the wrong silence. I started walking faster, my boots crunching unnaturally loud on the frosted leaves. I wanted to be back at my cabin before full dark. That's when I heard it. A faint sound carried on the still air. It was a mimicry, a twisted echo of a human voice, but stretched and thin, like a recording played too slow. It seemed to be whispering my name. Jake. The sound was everywhere and nowhere at once. I spun around, rifle raised, heart hammering against my ribs. The forest was empty, a labyrinth of darkening trees and long shadows. I was alone, or at least I couldn't see what was with me. I broke into a jog, ignoring the burn in my lungs. The whispering followed, weaving through the trees, always just at the edge of my hearing. It started to imitate other sounds. Cry of a loon, the snap of a twig, but they were all wrong, distorted. I knew the legends, the spirit of the lonely places, the thing that walked on the wind. The wind. They say it can mimic voices to lure you in, that it's born from a hunger so deep it eats a man from the inside out. Panic began to set in, cold and sharp. I had to get back. The cabin was my only sanctuary. As I ran, the forest seemed to change around me. Trees looked taller, more menacing. Shadows writhed and danced in my peripheral vision. I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw it, just for a second. Far back, between two ancient pines, was a figure. It was impossibly tall and thin, its limbs too long, its color the gray of dead ash. It stood perfectly still, watching me. I didn't look back again. Primera ene hadder, fueled by a terror so profound it was almost a physical force. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, a chorus of distorted voices calling my name, promising warmth, promising food. It knew I was a trapper. It knew I was alone. It knew I was hungry from the long day. The legends say its greatest weapon is your own desperation. My cabin came into view, a dark shape against the dying light. The final 100 yards felt like a mile. I fumbled with the key, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fit it in the lock. The door swung open and I threw myself inside, slamming it shut and bolting it. I leaned against the wood, gasping for air, listening. The whispering had stopped. Outside, the world was utterly silent once more. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with my back to the wall, rifle across my lap, watching the windows. Just before dawn, I heard a sound from the roof, a slow, heavy scraping, like stone on wood. It moved from one end of the cabin to the other, then stopped. Then came a new sound, a soft, wet, sniffing at the chimney flue. It was smelling the cold ashes in my stove, searching for any sign of life, of warmth. It knew I was in here. For 3 days, I was a prisoner in my own cabin. The silence outside was absolute during the day, but every night, the scraping and sniffing would return. I had food, but I couldn't bring myself to eat. The hunger it represented had stolen my own. On the 4th morning, I woke to the sound of a blizzard howling outside. The wind and snow were a welcome noise, a shield against the silence. I knew it couldn't hunt as well in a storm. This was my chance. I packed a light bag, took my reflay, and unbolted the door. The world was a swirling vortex of white. I couldn't see more than 10 feet in front of me, but I knew the way south. I had to get to town. I stepped out into the storm and started walking, not daring to look back at the cabin. The wind shrieked in my ears, but it was a natural sound, a clean sound. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled onto the main logging road. I followed it for miles, until I saw the distant lights of town. I never went back to that cabin. I left my traps, my gear, everything. Some people say I imagined it, that the solitude of the woods got to me. But I know what I heard, and I know what I saw. I know the feeling of being hunted, not for your meat, but for your warmth, for your very essence. I live in the town now. I can't stand the quiet anymore. At night, when the wind howls, I sometimes think I can hear a faint, distorted whisper woven into it, a reminder of that thing in the woods, the thing born of hunger and cold and the wrong kind of silence. A reminder that when the forest goes quiet, you're no longer the hunter. You're the one being listened to. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more tailies from the edge of the map. Stay safe out there. The Appalachian Trail had always been a dream of mine, a pilgrimage of sorts. After weeks of rugged terrain and breathtaking vistas, I found a small, rustic hostel tucked away in a valley, a welcome sight for my weary legs. The place was cozy, filled with fellow hikers, sharing stories and a warm meal. I was assigned a top bunk in a room with 3 other people. The guy in the bunk below me, a quiet, lanky fellow named Ethan, had been there for a couple of days, nursing a sprained ankle. He seemed nice enough, though he kept to himself, mostly just reading a tattered paperback. The other 2 were a cheerful couple from Germany who were already asleep when I climbed into my bunk. I was exhausted, the kind of deep, bone-weary tired you only get from days on the trail. As I drifted off, I heard a soft voice from the bunk below. "Good night, honey. Sleep well." I froze. My entire body went rigid. It was my mom's voice. Not just similar to it, but exactly her voice, the same gentle cadence. the same loving tone she'd used to tuck me in every night as a kid. But my mom was over 1,000 miles away, sound asleep in her own bed. My heart started hammering against my ribs. It had to be a dream, I told myself. I was just overtired, my mind playing tricks on me. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to force myself to sleep, to escape the chilling echo of that voice. But sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the old wooden hostel, every rustle of leaves outside the window, sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I lay there for what felt like hours, listening to the steady breathing of the German couple and the unnervingly silent bunk below me. Eventually, I must have drifted into a light, uneasy sleep, because I was startled awake by a soft scratching sound. It was coming from below. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch, scratch, pause. It sounded like fingernails dragging slowly across the wooden bed frame. My blood ran cold. I strained my ears, trying to place the sound. Was it his own? Was he just restless because of his ankle? I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but a primal fear had taken root in my gut. The scratching stopped, and a moment later, I heard a low, guttural whisper. It was too muffled to make out the words. A string of harsh, unfamiliar sounds that made the hair on my arm stand up. It definitely wasn't English. It wasn't German either. It sounded ancient, something that didn't belong in the modern world. My breath caught in my throat. I had to see what was going on. Slowly, inch by agonizing inch, I leaned over the edge of my bunk, peering down into the darkness below. The room was bathed in the faint moonlight filtering through the window, casting long, distorted shadows. Ethan's bunk was empty. The sheets were thrown back, but he was gone. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure it would wake the entire room. Where could he have gone? The bathroom. Maybe he stepped outside for some air. But then, I saw it. The window on the far side of the room, the one that was supposed to be latched shut, was wide open. A cold night breeze was drifting in, making the thin curtains dance like ghostly figures. A wave of pure terror washed over me. He hadn't used the door. I pulled back into my bunk, my mind racing. Nothing made sense. The voice, the scratching, the open window. It was all wrong. I remembered the old tales I'd read about the Appalachian Mountains. Whispers of strange creatures that roamed the forests. Beings that could mimic human voices. Skinwalkers. I'd always dismissed them as campfire stories. Folklore meant to scare tourists. But lying there, in the dead of night, with an empty bunk below me, and my mother's voice still echoing in my mind, the stories felt horrifyingly real. I didn't dare move. I just lay there, wrapped in my sleeping bag like a cocoon, pretending to be asleep, every muscle tensed. I listened for any sound of his return, my ears straining against the silence. Or, Basit. The first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, painting the room in shades of gray. Just as I started to think maybe I had imagined it all, a dark shape appeared at the open window. It was impossibly tall and thin, a contorted silhouette against the pre-dawn light. It moved with a fluid, au natural grace, folding itself through the window frame with a series of quiet, sickening cracks, like bones being reset. It wasn't human. It was too long, too gaunt, its limbs moving at angles that were just wrong. It landed silently on the floor and then, with a final, horrifying shudder, it seemed contract. The long limbs shortened, the gaunt frame filled out, and in the dim light, the shape resolved itself into the familiar form of Ethan. He quietly crossed the room and slipped back into his bunk as if he'd never left. I didn't breathe. Primera, Cudient. I had just watched something monstrous transform into the man sleeping a few feet below me. The quiet, unassuming hiker with the sprained ankle. Was the ankle even real? Or was it just part of the disguise? The sun was rising now, and the birds began to sing their morning chorus. A cheerful sound that felt completely alien to the horror I had just witnessed. Soon, the German couple started to stir. I heard Ethan move below me, a soft groan as if he was just waking up. "Morning?" he said, his voice completely normal. Friendly, even I couldn't answer. I just lay there, paralyzed with fear. I had to get out. I had to get away from him. from this place. Carefully, I climbed down from my bunk, avoiding eye contact with Ethan. I grabbed my pack, shoving my gear inside with trembling hands. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, his voice casual. I could feel his eyes on me. He just nodded, mumbling something about getting an early start. "All right," he said. "Be safe out there." He smiled, a perfectly normal, friendly smile. But his eyes, there was something in his eyes. A flicker of ancient, knowing intelligence that wasn't human. As I turned to leave, he spoke again, his voice dropping to that same soft whisper from the night before. "Say hi to your mom for me." I didn't look back. I practically ran out of the hostel and didn't stop until the sun was high in the sky. I never finished the trail. Some trails aren't meant to be finished. I went home, and every time my mom says goodnight, a part of me still freezes, waiting for the wrong voice to answer back from the darkness. Thanks for listening, and please, be careful who you share a room with. Follow for more stories. The first mistake was leaving the trail. Everyone tells you not to. The park rangers, the faded signs, even the old-timers in the nearby town. But the waterfall I'd heard whispers about wasn't on any official map. It was supposed to be a hidden gem, a secret paradise tucked away in the dense woods of this sprawling national park. I'd packed a light, just enough for a day hike. Water, a granola bar, a compass I barely knew how to use, and my phone, which of course had no signal. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I found the waterfall, and it was beautiful, but a primal unease had started to creep into the edges of my mind. The woods were too quiet. No birds chirping, no squirrels rustling in the underbrush, just the roar of the water and the sound of my own breathing. I decided to head back. That's when I heard the first snap of a twig. It was heavy, deliberate. Not a deer, not a bear. I froze, straining my ears. Another snap, closer this time. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Only the echo of my own voice answered, swallowed by the immense, silent forest. I started walking faster, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The sun was almost gone now, and long, distorted shadows danced between the trees. I glanced over my shoulder, and that's when I saw it. Or rather, I saw them. 2 points of light, glowing with a sickly, jaundiced yellow, about 10 feet off the ground. Day blinked, then I realized, with a jolt of pure terror, that I was looking at eyes. My mind refused to process it. Nothing stood that tall. It had to be a trick of the light, an owl on a high branch. But the eyes didn't move like an owl's. They were fixed on me, unblinking, filled with an ancient, predatory intelligence. Panic took over. I broke into a run, stumbling over roots and rocks, not daring to look back. I could hear it behind me now, a horrifying, loping gait. The sound was unnatural, the thud of heavy limbs hitting the forest floor with impossible speed. It wasn't just running, it was hunting. The air grew colder, an unnatural chill that had nothing to do with the setting sun. A rank, sweet smell, like old meat and damp earth, filled my nostrils, making me gag. I risked another glance. It was closer. The yellow eyes burned through the twilight, and I could just make out a silhouette against the fading sky. It was impossibly tall and thin, its limbs stretched to grotesque lengths. Its form was skeletal, gaunt, as if it were perpetually starving. The creature's head was crowned with what looked like antlers, jagged and dark against the sky. It was a nightmare-given form, something pulled from the darkest corners of forgotten folklore. This was no animal. This was a Wendigo. The name screamed in my head, a word I'd only ever read in old books about Native American legends. But the legends never captured the sheer, soul-crushing terror of seeing one. They never described the sound. It made a low, guttural click that seemed to come from deep within its chest, a sound of insatiable hunger. I pushed myself harder, my lungs burning, my legs screaming in protest. The forest was a blur of dark shapes. I didn't know where I was going. I was just running from those yellow eyes, from that awful clicking sound. The creature was toying with me. I could feel it. It could have caught me at any moment, its long strides easily outpacing my frantic sprint, but it stayed just behind, letting my terror build, savoring the chase. The forest seemed to change around me. The trees grew thicker, their branches like grasping claws, tearing at my clothes and skin. The path disappeared entirely, leaving me at the mercy of the tangled wilderness. I tripped, my foot catching on a hidden root, and went down hard. The impact knocked the wind out of me. I lay there, gasping for air, waiting for the end. The heavy footsteps stopped. The woods fell silent again. An oppressive, heavy silence. I slowly, fearfully, rolled onto my back and looked up. It was standing over me. A towering, emaciated figure, blotting out the last vestiges of twilight. Its skin was the color of ash, stretched taut over its bones. Its fingers were long, tipped with what looked like jagged claws. And its eyes, those terrible, yellow eyes, stared down at me, devoid of anything but a hollow, endless hunger. Its head tilted, and a dry, rasping sound escaped its lipless mouth, like the rustle of dead leaves. It wasn't a growl. It was something worse. It was the sound of anticipation. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable, but then a sound cut through the nutty, piercing whistle. It wasn't from me. The creature's head snapped up, its attention diverted. Another whistle, closer this time, followed by the distant shouts of human voices. Over here. Found tracks. The Wendigo let out a frustrated, screeching hiss that vibrated through the ground. It took one last look at me, its yellow eyes burning an image into my mind that I would never forget. Then, with a speed that defied its skeletal frame, it turned and melted back into the shadows, disappearing as silently as it had arrived. Flashlights cut through the darkness. A park ranger found me, curled into a ball, shaking uncontrollably. They thought I was lost, suffering from hypothermia and exhaustion. They didn't believe me when I tried to explain what I saw. They talked about black bears, about how the mind plays tricks on you when you're scared and alone in the dark. But I know what I saw. I can still smell the decay on the air. I can still hear that awful clicking sound in my nightmares. And sometimes, when I'm near the woods, primera caen, fil italiano, I can feel those yellow eyes watching me from the shadows, waiting. I never went back to that park. I don't hike anymore, because I know that some legends are real. And I know that deep in the wild places of this country, a tall, skeletal monster with yellow eyes is still running, still hunting, forever hungry. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Stay safe out there, and whatever you do, stay on the trail. The crackle of a campfire is supposed to be comforting, right? A warm, golden glow pushing back the endless dark of the forest. That's what I thought, too. My buddies Liam, Chloe, and Samandai were deep in the Arizona wilderness, miles from any town, celebrating the end of another college semester. It was our annual tradition. Find a spot on the map that looked like a blank space, and make it ours for a weekend. This time, we'd picked a clearing surrounded by ancient, gnarled junipers and towering ponderosa pines. The air was crisp, scented with pine needles and damp earth. As the last sliver of sun vanished behind the mountains, the forest came alive with the usual night sounds: the chirping of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl. Everything was perfect. We were telling stupid jokes, roasting marshmallows that were either perfectly golden or charcoal black, with no in-between. Around midnight, Liam, who always fancies himself a bit of a musician, started whistling a tune. It was a simple, catchy melody he'd been working on. It echoed softly in the quiet clearing. A moment later, from the opposite side of our camp, a second whistle answered. It was the same tune, almost perfect. We all stopped talking and looked at each other. Sam grinned. Guess we're not alone. Galefan, Liam. Liam chuckled a little nervously and whistled his tune again. Louder this time, more deliberate. The response came instantly, this time from a different direction, somewhere to our left. It was an exact replica, not just the notes, but the rhythm, the slight pause he took before the last note. It was flawless. A chill, colder than the night air, started to creep down my spine. "Okay, that's weird," Chloe whispered, her eyes wide as she scanned the impenetrable wall of trees around us. We all fell silent, listening. The only sound was the fire spitting and popping. Then, a third whistle, this one from behind us. It was Liam's tune, but it was better. The notes were clearer, sharper, more resonant than his own. It was like hearing a professional recording after listening to a rough demo. Liam wasn't whistling anymore. His face was pale in the firelight. He looked. Then came the fourth whistle. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. A haunting, perfect melody that surrounded us. It was Liam's tune, but it had been perfected, polished to an unnerving gleam. It sounded more like Liam than Liam himself. It was a mockery, a perfect copy that made the original sound clumsy and amateurish. The forest had stolen his song and was now singing it back to us, showing him how it should be done. We all scrambled closer to the fire, the one source of light and warmth in a world that had suddenly turned hostile. "Who's out there?" Sam shouted, his voice cracking. The only answer was the whistling, which now started to change. It began to mimic other sounds from our camp. The soft crinkle of my snack bag as I shifted nervously. The exact metallic click of Chloe's water bottle as she unscrewed the cap. It was a perfect auditory reflection of our every move. The scariest part was the silence in between. The mimic would reproduce a sound, and then an unnerving stillness would follow, as if it was waiting, listening for its next cue. The psychological toll was immense. We were afraid to move, afraid to speak. Every tiny sound we made was a potential invitation for that thing to copy us, to throw our own existence back in our faces. We tried to stay quiet, but in a silent forest, silence is impossible. A cough, a rustle of a jacket, the scrape of a boot on dirt each was instantly captured and echoed back with chilling precision. Then, it started with voices. Chloe, trying to break the tension, whispered, "We should just try to sleep." From the darkness, a voice whispered back, "We should just try to sleep." It was Chloe's voice, her exact pitch, her intonation, the slight tremor of fear in her words. Chloe let out a small, terrified gasp, and the gasp was repeated from the trees. She clapped her hands over her mouth, her body trembling. We were trapped in a horrifying echo chamber. This wasn't just mimicry. It was psychological warfare. The creature, whatever it was learning us. It was dissecting us, sound by sound, voice by voice. We huddled together, backs to the fire, staring into the oppressive darkness that seemed to be closing in. The fire was our only shield, but the logs were burning down, the circle of light shrinking with every passing minute. Hours crawled by. The whistling had stopped, but the mimicry of our small sounds continued. And then, a new sound. It was a voice, low and guttural, but it was speaking words. "Let me in," it rasped, using a distorted blend of all our voices, a grotesque chorus of us. It was as if it had taken our voices, mashed them together, and was now wearing them like a mask. "It's so cold out here." Sam, a former Eagle Scout, and always the pragmatist, grabbed the biggest log he could find and threw it on the fire. Sparks flew up into the night, and the flames roared back to life, pushing the darkness back a few precious feet. "It's afraid of the fire," he said, his voice a low growl. "We just have to keep it burning until sunrise." That became our mission. We fed the fire relentlessly, sacrificing our spare firewood, breaking apart dead branches, anything to keep the flames high. The mimicry grew more frantic, more desperate. It started imitating the sound of a woman crying, then a child laughing, then a man screaming in agony. It was throwing everything it had at us, trying to lure us out, to break our resolve. Then, the worst part. It began using our names. "Liam," it called, using my voice. "Chloe," it whispered, in Sam's voice. It was trying to turn us against each other, to plant seeds of doubt and paranoia. Who was real? Who could be trusted? We stopped speaking, communicating only with wide-eyed glances and frantic gestures. The fire was our anchor, the one true thing in a world of deceitful echoes. As the first faint hint of gray began to lighten the eastern sky, the sounds began to fade. The mimicry grew less frequent, more distant. The oppressive feeling that had suffocated us for hours started to lift, slowly, like a heavy blanket being pulled away. We didn't dare relax. We kept feeding the fire, our eyes scanning the woods, until the sun finally broke over the horizon, flooding the clearing with warm, blessed light. The forest was just a forest again. The ancient junipers were just trees. The night's terror felt like a fever dream. We packed our camp in record time, our hands shaking, not saying a word. We practically ran back to the car, throwing our gear in the trunk without care. The entire drive back was silent. We couldn't look at each other. What could we say? How do you talk about something that stole your voice, your sounds, your very identity, and used it as a weapon against you? We never went camping again. Sometimes, even now, in the dead of night, if I'm alone and the house is quiet, I think I can hear it. A faint whistle on the wind, a perfect copy of a tune I can't quite remember. And I know, deep in my bones, that it remembers me. It remembers all of us. And it's just waiting, listening for a new sound to copy. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had an experience like this out in the wild, share it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying tales. Stay safe out there. The snow didn't remember us. That's the only way I can explain what happened up on Mount Rainier. 6 hours. That's all it took for the mountain to erase every trace of our rescue base camp. Our tents, our gear, the footprints of a dozen seasoned mountaineers, all gone, swallowed by a fresh, pristine blanket of white, as if we'd never been there at all. But the snow did remember one thing. Or rather, it remembered something that wasn't us. One extra set of tracks, leading away from where our camp should have been, and disappearing into the unforgiving wilderness. My name is Alex, and I was the lead for Rainier Search and Rescue, Team Delta. We were called in for a missing hiker, a young man named Leo who'd gone off trail a few days prior. It was a standard operation, or so we thought. We set up base camp at about 8,000 feet, a strategic point with a clear view of the valley Leo was last seen heading into. The weather was cold, but stable. The first day was uneventful grid searches, radio chatter, the usual rhythm of a mountain rescue. The second day, things started to feel off. A strange quiet fell over the mountain. The birds went silent. The wind, which had been a constant companion, died down to an eerie whisper. It felt like the entire mountain was holding its breath. That evening, Sarah, our comm specialist, reported strange interference on the radio. Not static, but something that sounded like faint, rhythmic breathing, interspersed with what she swore was a human voice, distorted and speaking a language none of us recognized. We chalked it up to atmospheric interference, a common trick of the high altitudes. We should have listened closer. The morning of the third day, Mark and I took a two-man team to scout a treacherous ridgeline. The forecast was clear for the next 8 hours. We'll be back by 1600, I told Sarah over the radio. Keep the coffee hot. The climb was grueling but straightforward. We found no sign of Leo. Disappointed, we started our descent around 3 p.m. As we rounded the final glacial moraine before camp, I stopped dead. Mark bumped into me from behind. "What's up, Alex?" he asked. I didn't answer. "Primera, Kuri." And where our bustling base camp of 5 large, bright orange tents should have been, there was nothing. Just a smooth, unbroken expanse of fresh snow. It was impossible. A blizzard might cover a camp, but it wouldn't make it vanish. The snow was at least 3 feet deep, but there were no lumps, no outlines of buried tents or gear. It was as if we had imagined the whole thing. Panic started to bubble in my chest. I fumbled for my radio. "Delta base, this is Delta lead. Come in. Over." "Only static," answered. A thick, suffocating static. Mark was already running, his boots sinking deep into the powder. "It can't be. It's gone. Everything's gone," he screamed, his voice cracking. I ran after him, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. We dug frantically with our hands, the cold biting at our fingertips. We dug until our nails were raw, but we found nothing. No canvas, no metal poles, no sign of our 8 other team members. Just snow. Pure, empty snow. And then I saw them. The tracks. They started right where the entrance to our command tent would have been. They weren't from a standard hiking boot. They were long, unnaturally narrow, and dug deep into the snow, as if made by something impossibly heavy. But the stride was what made my blood run cold. The distance between each print was enormous. Easily 10 feet apart. No human could make a stride like that. The tracks were fresh, so fresh, I could see the crisp edges of the displaced snow. Whatever made them had been here moments ago. They led away from our phantom camp, up towards the higher, more dangerous peaks. A single set of tracks, going out, but not coming in. It made no sense. It was as if the creature had simply materialized in our camp and walked away. Mark saw them too. The color drained from his face. "Alex, what is that?" I had no answer, but an old story, a ghost story told by the local tribes, crept into my mind. A tale they used to warn people away from the high peaks in winter. A story of a spirit born of hunger and isolation. A tall, skeletal thing that mimicked human voices to lure its prey. They called it the Wendigo. I had always dismissed it as folklore, but standing there, staring at those impossible footprints, the folklore felt terrifyingly real. We had no gear, no food, no shelter. Our only hope was to get back down the mountain. We turned to leave, but as we did, a sound drifted down from the peaks above. A voice. It was Sarah, Alex Ma. "Is that you?" "We're over here." We got turned around in the snow. It sounded so real, so full of relief. Mark's head snapped up. "Sarah, we're coming." He started to take a step towards the voice, towards the impossible tracks. I grabbed his arm, my grip like iron. "Mark, stop. That's not her." He looked at me, his face a mask of confusion and hope. "What are you talking about?" "It's Sarah!" "We have to help them." The voice called again, closer this time. "Hurry. It's so cold. ... But this time, I heard it. Underneath Sarah's voice, there was a discordant echo. A rasping, guttural undertone. It was like a recording played on a broken machine. It was a perfect mimicry, but it was hollow, soulless. The breathing from the radio. The strange language, the mountain holding its breath. It all clicked into place. We weren't alone up here. We never had been. The missing hiker, Leo. He wasn't lost. He was bait. He drew us up here, into its territory. And our team, they weren't lost either. "Mark, listen to me," I said, my voice low and urgent. "Our team is gone. That thing, it took them. And now, it's trying to take us. We have to go down. Now, don't look back, and don't listen to the voices." Fear finally broke through his desperate hope. He nodded, his eyes wide with terror. We turned and ran. We didn't dare look behind us, but we could hear it. The sound of Sarah's voice twisted into a high-pitched scream of rage, followed by a sound that will haunt my nightmares forever. The splintering of ancient ice, and the heavy, bounding steps of something immense, now chasing us down the mountain. The descent was a blur of terror. We slipped, we fell, we ran until our lungs burned and our legs screamed in protest. The mimicry followed us. We heard the voices of every single member of our team, begging for help, crying, calling our names. It knew them. It knew their voices, and it used them like weapons. It was a psychological torture designed to break us, to make us turn back. We reached the tree line as dusk fell, plunging the forest into a world of long, distorted shadows. The sounds of the pursuit grew more distant, and we finally allowed ourselves a moment to catch our breath, collapsing behind a thicket of firs. The cold was setting in, and I knew we wouldn't survive the night without shelter. but the thought of stopping was more terrifying than the thought of freezing. Just as we were about to push on, we heard a new sound, a soft weeping, just ahead. It was Leo's voice, the missing hiker. "Please, help me. I'm hurt." Mark and I exchanged a look of pure dread. It had gotten ahead of us. It was cornering us. We were trapped between the memory of its pursuit and the sound of its trap. We didn't move. We barely breathed. The weeping continued for what felt like an eternity. A pathetic, heart-wrenching sound. Then it stopped. Silence returned to the forest. A silence even more terrifying than the sounds that had preceded it. We stayed hidden for another hour, until the moon was high in the sky. When we finally found the courage to move, we crept forward and found the spot where the voice had come from. There, in a small clearing, was a single, fresh set of those long, narrow footprints. And next to them, placed carefully on the snow, was Sarah's radio. We made it down. A logging crew found us the next morning, half-frozen and barely coherent. We told them what happened. They didn't believe us. Of course, they said a sudden, localized whiteout must have buried our camp. They said we were suffering from hypothermia and altitude sickness, that we had imagined the tracks, the voices. They searched for weeks, but they never found a single trace of our 8 teammates or their gear. They never found Leo. To the world, Team Delta simply vanished on Mount Rainier. But I know the truth. The snow didn't just cover our camp heat, Wazira said. Cleansed. The mountain took them, fed them to its oldest secret. I can't go near the mountains anymore. Sometimes, late at night when the wind howls, I think I can hear it. Faint whispers on the breeze, mimicking the voices of my friends. It's reminding me that it remembers. It remembers their names, their voices, and it's waiting. The snow up there may look pristine and new, but it's not empty. It's a blank page, waiting for the next story to be written. And the monster who lives there is always hungry for new characters. I work maintenance for the county water department based out of Socorro, New Mexico. Most of my work involves checking old wells and pumps scattered across ranchland that hasn't seen regular use in decades. It's quiet work that suits me fine. I like the open land and the kind of silence that only exists miles from another person. On April 15th, 2021, I was dispatched to a decommissioned livestock well on leased property north of the Rio Salado Basin. The owner had called the county office claiming the old draw line had jammed. He said something down there was keeping tension on it, that the rope never stayed slack. I'd heard plenty of stories like that from ranchers. I figured it was water swelling the hemp, or an air pocket shifting below the surface. The property lay at the end of an unmarked track, 2 miles off a dirt road, already half erased by sand. It took nearly an hour to drive those last 2 miles in low gear. The desert was the color of bone, and the heat shimmered off the ground until the horizon looked liquid. The well sat beside an abandoned windmill tower that leaned at an angle, its blades half missing and the tail vane rusted stiff. The only sound came from insects and the soft metallic creak of the tower when the wind moved. The well cap had been removed, exposing a round shaft lined with concrete. A weathered rope, brown and stiff, hung over a cleat and disappeared into the darkness below. I logged the coordinates, checked for cracks in the casing, and started the standard inspection. The first step is always to verify depth and condition. I dropped a weighted gauge line and watched the numbers roll off the reel. The water level sat deeper than expected, about 32 feet down. I leaned over the edge with a flashlight. The beam caught the glint of water far below. The surface was smooth and still, too clear for a well that old. The rope extended straight into it. No sag, no slack. I gave it a tug. The fibers held tight, as if something beneath was gripping the line. I let go, expecting it to settle. It didn't move. It stushed, humming faintly. Against the cleat, the air inside the shaft was cooler, almost damp, and carried a faint metallic scent. I thought it might be oxidized casing or rusted pump parts. Nothing unusual. When I stood up, the wind dropped suddenly. The silence that followed was heavy, as though the landscape had stopped breathing. I heard a soft scraping sound echo up from below, rope sliding against stone. Then the tension shifted under my fingers. The rope twitched, then rose an inch. 10-0 there, the fibers sliding over the rim slow and smooth. It wasn't the wind, and it wasn't pressure from water. Something was pulling it upward from underneath. I stepped back, keeping the flashlight trained on the rope. It climbed another foot before pausing, hanging there like it was waiting for direction. I radioed my supervisor, told him I had movement on a line from a sealed well. He sounded half asleep. He said it was probably a shifting weight or a thermal expansion. I told him it was rising. He told me to cut it loose if I felt unsafe. His voice crackled in the static. When I looked back at the well, the rope was still again, as if it had been listening. I could see every fiber outlined in the flashlight beam, glistening faintly as though it was wet. I tied off the top of the line to the cleat again and pulled a little more to test it. The tension was strong, heavy, unrelenting. When I released it, the rope didn't fall. It stayed suspended. I took my knife and cut through the top section near the knot. The loose piece should have fallen straight into the shaft. Instead, it stopped halfway down, hovering in open air. It hung there for a long breath before sliding back over the edge and vanishing into the dark. I heard it hit the water, a deep, hollow splash that echoed too long to make sense. The air pressure shifted, my flashlight dimmed to a pulse, like it was losing battery. I leaned closer, expecting to see the rope sink. Instead, the surface rippled and then stilled again. The cut end of the rope floated upright, the way a fishing line does when something below is pulling from a distance. Then it dipped and disappeared beneath the surface. I could hear faint bubbles rising, rhythmic, almost like breathing. I stepped back, and something brushed my boot. The coil of rope I had left behind me was moving, inching toward the well. Each loop straightened one at a time, dragging through the dust as if someone beneath the earth was reeling it in. I kicked the coil aside, but the end kept sliding, scraping against the ground with a sound too soft to be roped. It was slick, almost wet, like skin against concrete. I watched the tail end lift over the rim, feeding itself back into the shaft, smooth and patient. Then the water below gave one deep, heavy splash that sent droplets up the walls. The air smelled sharp, metallic, and sweet, like blood and rust. Primera basket, white flashlight trembling in my hand, and didn't stop until I reached the truck. The radio crackled again as I started the engine. At first, it was just static. Then my own voice came through, replaying the call from earlier. Movement on the line, it said, clear and flat. Then again, slower. Movement on the line. Then the signal broke into a low hum that sounded too much like breathing. I turned the unit off and drove until I saw highway lights. 2 days later, the landowner called the office. He wanted to know why we hadn't sealed the well. He said the rope was back, clean and new, tied around the cleat just like before. I told him that was impossible, that I had cut it. He said maybe the wind had done it. Tug didn't he sound convinced. I offered to send another crew, but the dispatches said the job file had been closed with no record of my report. The paperwork was gone. I kept a section of that rope, the short piece I had cut off. I left it in the truck's toolbox as evidence. A week later, I checked it again. The fibers had darkened, damp at the ends. Though it hadn't rained, the smell was the same as the air inside the well, metallic and old. I threw it out behind the maintenance yard. The next morning, there was a thin line of dust running from where it had landed, straight to the corner of the fence, like something had dragged it away during the night. I didn't go back to that site. The county sealed the access road that summer after a sinkhole opened near the basin. The reports said the collapse had exposed a series of narrow shafts that no one could trace. The landowner sold the property. I heard he moved east and never came back. Sometimes, on night patrols, I pass near that region. The land is empty now, just low scrub and wind. But once, when I stopped for a flat tire, I heard a faint creak behind me. When primera turned, the air smelled like rain on metal, and something pale swayed low across the dirt, slow and patient, as if still climbing. The first time I heard the scream, I dismissed it as the wind. Up here, in the shadow of Twin Peaks, the wind howls like a banshee, a constant, mournful cry that plays tricks on your ears. I'd been a fire lookout for 3 seasons, stationed in the old Osprey Point Tower, and I thought I'd heard every sound these mountains could make. I was wrong. It was late September, the air crisp with the coming autumn. The aspens a brilliant, fiery gold against the dark pines. The summer haze had vanished, and the peaks stood out in sharp, brutal detail against the endless blue sky. That's when the first call came over the radio. A hiker. Overdue. Not unusual. People underestimate these mountains all the time. But then another call came. And another. A family of 4 vanished from their campsite near Emerald Lake. All their gear was still their tent. Sleeping bags, even a pot of half-cooked chili hanging over a cold fire pit. They were just gone. Search and rescue set up a base camp. Their bright orange jackets a stark contrast to the deep greens and browns of the forest. I watched them through my binoculars, a small army of determined figures combing the trails. Days turned into a week. The mood shifted from hopeful to grim. The nights grew longer, colder, and the sounds started. At first, it was that high-pitched scream, closer this time, echoing off the granite faces of the peaks. It wasn't the wind, it was a sound of pure, abject terror. A sound that made the hairs on my arms stand up and a cold dread snake its way down my spine. Then came the whispers, feigned at first, carried on the breeze. They sounded like my name, stretched and distorted, a hollow, rasping sound that seemed to come from all directions at once. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, the isolation playing with my mind. I'd spent countless nights alone up here, but this felt different. This felt like I wasn't alone anymore. One evening, as the sun bled out behind the mountains, casting long, skeletal shadows across the valley, I saw it. I was scanning the ridgeline to the east, just below Twin Peaks, when a flicker of movement caught my eye. It was too fast, too fluid to be a deer or an elk. I focused my binoculars, my heart hammering against my ribs. What I saw, it didn't make sense. It was tall, impossibly so, and thin, like a dead tree stripped of its bark. Its limbs were long and angular, moving with a jerky, unnatural grace as it picked its way through the scree. Its color was the pale, sickly white of bone, bleached by the sun. It stopped and turned its head, and even from that distance, I felt a chilling sense of being watched, of Bang's sheen. There was a dark, hollow space where a face should be, a void that seemed to suck in the fading light. I dropped the binoculars, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I didn't sleep that night. Every gust of wind was the sound of it climbing the tower stairs. Every creak of the old wooden structure was the sound of its long fingers testing the door. The next morning, the radio crackled to life. It was Sheriff Miller. His voice was strained, heavy with a fatigue that went beyond lack of sleep. "We're pulling the search," he said, calling it off. There's nothing left to find." I asked him what he meant. There was a long silence on the other end, filled only with static. "We found some tracks," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "They don't match any known animal." "And we found things. Scattered. Torn clothing. A backpack." He paused again. "It's not a bear, son. Whatever's out there, it's something else." After he signed off, a profound silence fell over the tower, heavier and more menacing than any storm. The search teams packed up and left, their orange jackets disappearing down the winding mountain road, leaving me truly alone with the peaks and the creeping dread. The beautiful, majestic mountains I had loved now felt like a prison, and I was trapped inside with a monster from the darkest of nightmares. That night, the whispers came back, louder, more insistent. They weren't just calling my name anymore. They were promises. Promises of warmth in the freezing air, of company in the crushing loneliness. They spoke of an end to hunger, annoying, insatiable hunger I hadn't even realized I was feeling. I barricaded the door with my cot and the supply chest, my hands clumsy with fear. The temperature plummeted, and frost began to creep across the inside of the window panes. Through a small, clear patch, I stared out into the oppressive darkness, and then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping, not on the door, but on the glass, 60 feet above the ground. Tap, tap, tap. My blood ran cold. I couldn't bring myself to look up to see the source of the sound. The tapping stopped, replaced by a low, scraping noise, like fingernails, dragging slowly down the glass. A long, pale finger, more like a gnarled branch, traced a line in the frost, its tip leaving a dark, wet trail. I huddled in the corner, clutching the fire axe. The only weapon I had. The whispers were inside my head now, a chorus of despair and ravenous desire. It knew my fears. It spoke of my family, of my regrets, of every dark thought I'd ever had. It was trying to break me, to hollow me out from the inside. The scraping on the window continued for what felt like an eternity, a slow, patient torture. Then, a new sound, the groaning of stressed metal. I looked up at the trapdoor in the ceiling that led to the exterior catwalk. It was bowing inward, the thick steel bolts straining against an immense, unseen pressure. A fine dust of rust and paint flakes rained down on me. With a horrifying shriek of tearing metal, one of the bolts snapped, then another. I scrambled for the radio, my fingers fumbling with the dial. Mayday, Mayday, Osprey Point Tower, something's trying to get in. It's on the roof. My voice was a choked, pathetic squeak. The only reply was a burst of static, followed by a faint, distorted whisper that came through the speaker. It was my own voice, twisted into a mocking, hungry rasp, with a final, deafening crack. The trapdoor ripped free from its hinges and was thrown aside. For a moment, there was only the black, star-filled sky. Then, a shape descended, unfolding itself into the cramped space of the lookout tower. It was skeletal, its gray, taut skin stretched over a frame that was all wrong, all sharp angles and impossible length. Its head tilted, and from the deep, shadowed pits of its eyes, an ancient, malevolent intelligence stared right through me. A foul stench filled the room, the smell of decay and frozen earth. It opened its mouth, a jagged, lipless tear in its face, and a sound emerged, not a roar, but a dry, rattling hiss that mimicked the whispers, the scream, and the wind all at once. It was the sound of utter starvation. I didn't scream. Primera. Good. And all I could do was stare into the abyss that had come for me. This is my last entry. I'm broadcasting this on a loop. Don't come looking. Don't come to Twin Peaks. The hunger is eternal, and the mountains are its home. It's always watching. Always. The late night shift is always the worst. It's just you, the hum of the servers, and the endless glow of your monitor. I work from home for a tech support company, and my shift starts at midnight. Usually, it's just me and 4 other agents scattered across the country, connected by a video conference call that stays open all night. We mute ourselves unless we need to chat. Our faces little boxers on the screen, a silent testament to our shared solitude. That night started like any other. I logged in at 11:58 p.m. Maria from Miami, David from Denver, Sarah from Seattle, and Ben from Boston. All present. We exchanged our usual tired greetings. The call host was always our supervisor, who never turned his camera on and rarely spoke. His icon was just a gray silhouette. Everything was normal. I settled back in my chair, ready for the 8-hour grind. Around 2 a.m., I noticed something odd. There was a new participant in the call. A 6th box had appeared at the bottom of my screen. It was just a black square. No name, no icon. I figured it was a glitch, maybe a new hire shadowing the shift. I sent a quick message in our group chat. Anyone know who the new person is? A few seconds later, Sarah replied, "What new person?" I only see the usual 5 of us. Ben and Maria chimed in, saying the same. I checked my screen again. 6 boxers. Mine, my 4 colleagues, and the black, nameless one. My heart started to beat a little faster. I tried to dismiss it. It had to be a bug on my end. I minimized the window and focused on a customer ticket. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The silence in my apartment, usually comforting, suddenly felt heavy and oppressive. Ano urlater? I glanced back at the video call. The black box was still there. But this time, it wasn't completely black. A flicker of light danced in the center. I squinted, leaning closer to the screen. The light flickered again, and the camera feed stuttered into life. My blood ran cold. The video feed from the sixth participant was showing a room. My room. My living room, to be exact. I could see my own couch, the crooked painting on the wall I'd been meaning to fix for weeks, the stack of mail on the coffee table. The camera was positioned from a low angle near the floor, pointing up towards the ceiling. It was grainy and the colors were washed out, but there was no mistaking it. It was my home. I ripped my headphones off, my hands shaking. My entire body went into a state of high alert. I was frozen, my eyes glued to the screen. Who was this? How were they seeing my living room? My mind raced through the possibilities. A hacked webcam, but my laptop was in my home office, facing a blank wall. This camera was in the other room. I slowly stood up, every muscle in my body screaming at me to run. But where would I go? I crept towards my office door, peering through the small crack. The living room was dark and silent, exactly as I had left it. There was no one there. I could see the faint glow of the streetlights filtering through the blinds. Everything looked normal. Then, on my monitor, I saw movement. The camera feed from the mysterious sixth participant shifted. It panned slowly, deliberately, across my living room. It moved past the couch, lingered on the hallway that led to my bedroom, and then started to move again, tilting downwards. For a terrifying second, I saw a flash of something dark and hairy moving just at the edge of the frame before the feed cut back to black. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight with a primal fear I had never known. This wasn't a hacker. This was something else. This was something inside my apartment. I backed away from the door, my eyes wide, scanning the shadows of my office. My gaze fell back to the video conference. The black box was still there, a void of nothingness that held the most terrifying secret. Primetawa chatted, mesmerized by fear, waiting for the camera to turn on again, waiting to see what was in my home with me. Minutes stretched into an eternity. My colleagues were still there, their silent faces oblivious to my personal horror film unfolding. I wanted to scream, to type "help me" in the chat, but my fingers wouldn't move. What would I even say? That an anonymous caller on our work conference is showing me a live feed from my own living room. They would think I was losing my mind. Then, the camera turned on again. This time, the view was different. It was closer. Much closer. It was pointed at the floor, at the worn wooden planks right outside my office door. I could see the sliver of light from under my door, illuminating the floorboards. And then, a shadow fell over the view. A long, distorted shadow that didn't look human. It stretched and contorted, the shape impossibly thin and elongated. I heard a sound from the hallway, a soft, wet scrape, like something heavy and boneless being dragged across the floor. My breath hitched in my throat. I was trapped. The thing was right outside my door. On the screen, the camera began to lift. It was rising, as if whatever was holding it was slowly standing up. The view tilted upwards, showing the bottom of my office door, then the doorknob. My eyes darted from the screen to my actual doorknob. It was still. But for how long? The scraping sound stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. The video feed was now perfectly still, aimed directly at my door from the other side. It was waiting. It knew I was in here. It knew I was watching. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from Sarah. "Hey, you okay? You've been quiet." I stared at the message, my mind a blank slate of terror. How could I explain this? How could I make anyone believe me? Just then, a new sound came from the hallway, a low clicking, like fingernails tapping on wood. The sound was slow, rhythmic. Click, click, click. It was coming from the door, and then I heard a voice. It was a whisper, a dry, raspy sound that seemed to crawl right into my ear. It came not from the hallway, but from my own laptop speakers, from the sixth participant. let me in. It was a distorted mimicry of a human voice. It sounded like it was trying to remember how to speak, forcing the words out through a throat not meant for them. My blood turned to ice. Onte screen defeat from the 6th participant flickered. And for a split second, I saw it. I saw the face. It wasn't human. It was long and gaunt, with pale, stretched skin pulled tight over an unnaturally shaped skull. Its eyes were huge, black, and depthless, reflecting the light from under my door. Its mouth was a wide, lipless gash that twisted into a grotesque smile as it repeated the words, "Lit me in." I scrambled backward, falling out of my chair and hitting the floor with a thud. I crab-walked away from the desk, my eyes locked on the door, expecting it to burst open at any second. The clicking stopped. The whispering stopped. In the ensuing silence, I heard something new. The faint sound of my colleagues' voices through my still-connected headset lying on the floor. Maria was laughing at something Ben had said. Their normal, mundane world felt a million miles away. Then, the doorknob began to turn, slowly. So slowly. I watched in absolute horror as the brass knob twisted, the lock inside making a soft, metallic click. The door swung inward, opening into the darkness of my office. And standing there, silhouetted against the dim light of the hallway, was a figure. It was tall, impossibly tall, its limbs long and bent at strange angles. It had to stoop to fit through the doorway, its head tilted, and those two bottomless black eyes found me cowering in the corner. It took a step into the room, its joints popping and cracking with each unnatural movement. It didn't walk, it unfolded. The smile on its lipless mouth widened, and it raised a long, clawed hand. My mind finally broke free from the paralysis. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound of pure terror. I lunged for the one thing I could think of, my heavy desk lamp. I swung it with all my might. The creature, the Skinwalker, let out a shriek that was a horrifying mix of animal and human as the lamp connected with its head. It stumbled back, giving me the opening I needed. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I bolted out of the office, past the grotesque figure, and ran. I didn't grab my keys, my wallet, or my phone. I just ran out the front door and into the cold night air, not stopping until the streetlights of my neighborhood felt like a distant memory. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I never went back to that apartment. I called the police from a payphone, babbling incoherently about a break-in. They found the apartment empty, the front door wide open. My work laptop was still on, the video conference still running. But when they checked, there were only 5 participants. The 6th box was gone, as if it had never been there at all. I quit that job. I moved across the country, but sometimes, when I'm working late, I still get the feeling that I'm being watched, and I can never shake the image from my mind. That dark, nameless box on the screen, showing me a live feed of my own home, and the horrifying face that smiled back at me from the other side. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for more stories. Stay safe out there. The first rule of winter survival is calories. You burn them to stay warm, to move, to think. I teach this stuff for a living. I can tell you the caloric content of pine bark, of grubs, of lichen. I can build a shelter from snow and find water where there seems to be none. I thought I knew everything about staying alive in the frozen wild. I was wrong. The forest had a different kind of student, and it had been learning for a very, very long time. It started on the 3rd day of a solo expedition in the Canadian Rockies, a test of my own skills. The snow was deep, the silence profound. That's when I found the first one, a discarded energy bar wrapper, neatly placed on a snow-covered stump. My wrapper. From the day before, I'm meticulous about packing out my trash, so this was odd. I figured a bird or a squirrel must have fished it out of my bag. I stuffed it in my pocket and moved on. The next day, it happened again. This time, it was the foil packet from MY Dehydrated Beef Stroganoff. 180 calories. It was sitting on a fallen log right in the middle of my path, wiped clean and folded into a neat square. A chill, colder than the wind, crawled up my spine. Animals don't do this. They don't clean wrappers. They don't fold them. I started looking over my shoulder, my hand resting on the handle of my survival knife. The silence of the forest suddenly felt heavy, watchful. That night, sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I huddled in my snow cave, the small flame of my candle casting dancing shadows. I counted my remaining rations: 3 Hickory meal packs, 5 energy bars, a bag of trail mix, about 5,000 calories total. Enough for another 4 days? Easy. I double-checked my pack, zipping every pocket, cinching every strap. Nothing was getting in. The morning brought fresh snow and a fresh horror. Laid out in a perfect semicircle around the entrance to my shelter with 3 more wrappers, a fruit leather strip, 90 calories, a hot cocoa packet, 120 calories, and a single, tiny peanut that had escaped my trail mix, maybe 10 calories. They were arranged in ascending order of their caloric value. My blood ran cold. This wasn't an animal. This wasn't a prank. Something was out there. Something that wasn't just following me, but studying me. It was learning my supplies. It was counting. It understood the numbers on the packaging. The concept hit me with the force of a physical blow. It was unjust reading the labels. It was understanding what they meant. It was evaluating my worth. I abandoned the camp immediately. No breakfast, no packing up. I just grabbed my pack and ran. I didn't know what I was running from, but I knew it was intelligent. The crisp air burned my lungs, my snowshoes kicking up clouds of white. I ran for hours, fueled by pure adrenaline, pushing deeper into the woods, hoping to lose whatever was tailing me. By midday, I was exhausted. I stopped to catch my breath, leaning against an ancient pine. And I saw it. Scratched into the bark of the tree opposite me was a number: 1800. I looked down at my own body, my jacket, my pants, my boots. Then I thought about the meal I'd skipped. The average male my size, exerting this much energy, burns about 1800 calories by noon. It knew. It wasn't just counting the calories I was carrying. It was calculating the calories I was. Panic is a poor survival tool. But I couldn't help it. I screamed. A raw, primal sound that was swallowed by the endless trees. The forest answered with silence. I scrambled for my pack, fumbling with the zipper. I had to give it something. An offering. A tribute. I pulled out an energy bar. 250 calories. I unwrapped it and placed it on the snow. "Here!" I yelled, my voice trembling. "Take it! Take it!" I backed away slowly, my eyes scanning the trees. A flicker of movement. A shadow detaching from another shadow. It was tall and possibly thin, its limbs too long, its skin the color of old bone and frostbite. It moved without a sound, gliding over the snow. It didn't look at me. Its gaze was fixed on the energy bar. It bent down, its joints cracking like breaking branches, and picked it up. Then it turned its head, and for the first time, I saw its face. There was nothing there but a hollow darkness, a void of insatiable hunger. And deep within that void, a glint of cold, calculating intelligence. It ate the bar, wrapper and all, without a sound. Then it turned and melted back into the trees. I was left alone, shaking, my breath fogging in the frigid air. It was a trade, a transaction. And I understood the terms. The next few days were a blur of terror and negotiation. I didn't run anymore. There was no point. It was always there, just at the edge of my vision. I set a schedule. Every 6 hours, I would leave an offering. A handful of trail mix, a block of dried soup. I would place it on the snow, announce the calorie count, and retreat. And every time, the skeletal figure would emerge, consume the offering, and disappear. It was a constant drain on my resources, but it kept me alive. It was buying me time, but my supplies were dwindling. Soon, I was down to my last meal pack, 700 calories. I placed it on a flat rock, my hands shaking so badly I could barely open the packet. "This is it," I whispered to the silent woods. "This is all I have left." The creature emerged. It took the food, but this time it didn't leave. It stood there, motionless, its empty gaze fixed on me. The transaction was over. My credit had run out. I had nothing left to offer. Nothing, except the approximately 150,000 calories that made up my own body. It took a step towards me, a sound like grinding ice accompanying the movement. "Primera, basket." Hawaii, stumbling over a route. My mind raced, searching for any survival trick, any piece of knowledge that could save me. Fire. It showed no fear of my small campfires. A weapon. My knife felt like a toothpick against such an ancient horror. Then, my eyes fell on my pack. My empty, useless pack. But it wasn't entirely empty. I always carry a small, emergency flare gun. Not for rescue, not this deep in. It's for scaring off bears. It was my last resort, my last desperate gamble. As the thing stalked closer, its long, bony fingers flexing, I fumbled for the flare gun. My hands were numb with cold and fear. It was almost on me, the chilling aura of its hunger washing over me, a palpable force that seemed to suck the very warmth from my bones. I raised the gun, aimed at the center of its chest, and pulled the trigger. A blinding flash of red light erupted, painting the snow in crimson. A deafening hiss filled the air. The creature shrieked, a sound that wasn't of this world, a chorus of winter wind and snapping bones. It recoiled, shielding its hollow face as the burning magnesium flare embedded itself in its chest. It didn't bleed. Instead, a foul-smelling, black ichor oozed from the wound, sizzling against the intense heat. The scent of rot and freezer burn filled the air. It staggered back, swatting at the sputtering flare, its shriek turning into a guttural growl of pain and fury. It wasn't dead, not even close, but it was hurt. It was distracted, and that was my chance. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I ran harder than I ever have in my life, not looking back. The creature's unearthly screams chasing me through the twilight. I ran until my lungs felt like they were on fire, until my legs were screaming in protest. I ran until the screams faded, replaced once again by the profound, terrifying silence of the woods. I don't know how long I ran. I just know that eventually, the trees started to thin. I saw a light, a single, beautiful, electric light from a remote logging outpost. I stumbled towards it, collapsing in the snow just yards from the door. They found me half-frozen, incoherent, babbling about calories and empty wrappers. They said I was lucky to be alive, a testament to my survival skills. I didn't tell them the truth. I didn't tell them that my survival had nothing to do with my skills. It had to do with a desperate transaction, a last-minute calculation. I survived because, for a few crucial moments, a 150-calorie flare was worth more to my predator than the thousands of calories I represented. I don't go into the deep woods anymore. Sometimes, at night, when the winter wind howls, I find myself compulsively checking the pantry, counting the calories on the boxers and cans. And I wonder, is it still out there, in the frozen dark, learning, evolving, getting better at math? And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that someday, it's going to come looking for the one that got away. And this time it will know my exact caloric value. The crisp mountain air was supposed to be a cure-all, a clean break from the smog and noise of the city. My girlfriend Clara and I had rented a remote cabin deep in the backcountry, a place promising nothing but pines and silence. We found it at the end of a long, rutted dirt road, a charmingly rustic A-frame with a huge picture window facing the dense forest. We were thrilled. That first day was We hiked, we laughed, and as dusk settled, we built a crackling fire in the stone hearth. It was perfect. That night, I woke up to a strange sound, a rhythmic, heavy thudding against the outside wall. I nudged Clara. "Did you hear that?" She mumbled, half asleep. I crept to the window, peering into the inky blackness. Nothing. Just the silhouette of trees against a starless sky. I dismissed it as a branch or an animal and went back to bed. But the feeling of being watched, that primal, hair-raising instinct, had already taken root. The next day, things felt off. The woods seemed quieter. The birds had stopped singing. While making coffee, I noticed a set of large, unusual tracks near the cabin's foundation. They weren't bare, and they weren't deer. They looked almost human, but elongated, with deep claw marks dug into the soft earth. Clara saw them too, her brow furrowing with concern. "Probably just a weird coyote," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. We decided to shake it off with another hike, venturing deeper into the forest than before. That's when we found the totems. They were crude effigies, woven from sticks, animal bones, and tufts of dark, coarse fur hanging from tree limbs. They were arranged in a loose circle, and a cold dread washed over me. This wasn't some hiker's art project. This felt ancient and territorial. Clara grabbed my arm, air face pale. "Let's go back," she whispered. We didn't need to be told twice. As we hurried back, the forest, which had been unnervingly silent, came alive, but not with the sounds of nature. It was a mimicry. We heard a faint, distorted echo of our own conversation from earlier that morning. Then, Clara's name, whispered in a voice that was almost mine, but not quite. It was raspy, guttural. We broke into a run, the sounds of snapping twigs chasing us all the way back to the cabin. We slammed the door, heartbeats hammering against our ribs, and bolted it shut. As evening fell, we sat in near silence, the cozy cabin now feeling like a trap. The fire did little to warm the chill that had settled deep in our bones. I tried to reassure Clara, to rationalize what we'd experienced, but the words felt hollow even to me. That's when I saw it. The picture window, which should have been a black mirror reflecting the cabin's interior, showed something wrong. The reflection was perfect, the roaring fire, the couch, the lamp. But there was a discrepancy. In the reflection, Clara and I were both sitting on the couch, but in reality, I was standing by the fireplace. My blood ran cold. I stared, mesmerized and horrified. My reflection was on the couch, sitting right next to Clara, its head slightly turned, a grin stretching its features into an unnatural, predatory smile. I slowly turned my head towards the real Clara. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the window. She had seen it too. "Liam," she breathed, her voice a fragile tremor. "Don't move." The figure in the reflection, the one wherein my face slowly lifted a hand and waved. Not at us. It was waving at something outside, in the darkness. Then, the thudding started again. Louder this time, right at the front door. Thud. Thud. It was followed by a scratching, a frantic, desperate clawing at the wood. A voice, a perfect imitation of my own, called out, "Clara, honey, I forgot my keys. Can you let me in?" I was standing right beside her. We scrambled backward, away from the door, away from the window. The thing in the reflection was now standing up, its grin wider, its eyes black pits. The banging on the door grew more violent, the wood groaning under the force. The voice outside started to change, twisting from my own into a chorus of guttural clicks and high-pitched shrieks, the sounds of 1,000 animals in their death throes. I grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace. Clara was sobbing, huddled in the corner. Primera adi no plan. There was nowhere to run. The window reflection showed the thing that looked like me walking towards the door from the inside. As if topo in Italiano, suddenly, the front window imploded. A shower of glass rained into the cabin as a massive, dark form lunged through the empty frame. It was impossibly tall and gaunt, its limbs bent at unnatural angles. Its skin was like stretched, leathery hide, and its face was a nightmarish blend of coyote and man, with eyes that glowed with a faint, malevolent red. It let out a shriek that vibrated through my very soul. It wasn't after us. It lunged at the front door. The creature outside, the mimic, shrieked in response. They were fighting. The cabin became a whirlwind of snarling, clawing, and screaming as these two horrors tore at each other. We didn't wait to see who won. I grabbed Clara, and we scrambled out the shattered back window, cutting ourselves on the glass. We didn't look back. We just ran, fueled by pure terror. The sounds of the unholy battle fading behind us as we sprinted blindly through the dark woods, praying we'd find the road. We never went back to the backcountry. Some places are not meant for us, and some things are better left undisturbed. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows. Stay safe out there. The first time I lied, the old furnace in the basement let out a low, guttural groan. I was telling my wife, Sarah, that the weird scratching sounds we'd been hearing were just mice. We'd just bought this old house, a fixer-upper, deep in the Arizona desert, and a little pest problem seemed normal. But the sound that echoed up from the basement felt different. It was a deep, metallic seek, like something ancient and heavy settling in the dark. I dismissed it as the house's old bones groaning, but the hair on my arms stood on end. Our big project was the basement. It was a damp, stone-walled cavern with a dirt floor, and in the far corner, a hulking, rust-covered furnace that looked like it hadn't been fired up since the Cold War. My plan was to turn this space into a workshop. The first step was clearing everything out. That's when I found the box. Tucked away behind the furnace, covered in a century's worth of dust, was a small, wooden chest. Inside, nestled on a bed of dried herbs, was a journal bound in cracked leather and a brittle, yellowed animal hide. The journal was filled with spidery handwriting, detailing the previous owner's life here. He wrote about the land, the silence, and the watchers in the dark. He described creatures that could wear the skins of coyotes and men, things that mimicked voices to lure you out into the night. Skinwalkers, Taros Kalaska. He believed the furnace, made from iron and blessed by a local shaman, kept them at bay. He wrote that it could sense intent, that it would react to dishonesty, because lies were a tool of the deceiver. The last entry was chilling. They're mimicking her voice now. I know it's not her, but it sounds so real. I laughed it off. Old superstitions. I tossed the journal and the strange hide back in the box and shoved it into a corner. That night, Sarah asked if I'd finished clearing the basement. Yep, all done, I lied. I hadn't touched it since finding the box. As the words left my mouth, a loud bang erupted from below. It sounded like someone had slammed a sledgehammer against the furnace door. But, jump it. What was that? Sarah whispered. Just the pipes, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. Another groan from the furnace, longer this time, like a drawn-out, mournful sigh. The furnace knew I was lying. The next few days were a blur of unease. Scratching sounds emanated from the basement walls, louder and more frantic than before. One evening, I was working late in the garage when I heard Sarah calling my name from the backyard. Her voice sounded strained, urgent. I ran outside, but she wasn't there. My phone buzzed. In my pocket, it was Sarah, calling from her sister's house across town. She'd been there for hours. A cold dread washed over me. I remembered the journal. They're mimicking her voice now. That night, I couldn't sleep. Just after midnight, I heard it again. My voice, clear as day, calling Sarah's name from the basement. Sarah, come down here. I need your help. But I was lying right next to her. She stirred in her sleep, murmuring my name. My blood ran cold. The thing in the basement wasn't just mimicking voices anymore. It was mimicking mine. It was trying to lure her down. Driven by a fear I'd never known, I crept down to the basement, grabbing the heaviest wrench I could find. The air was thick and smelled of dust and something else. Something coppery and wild. The single light bulb flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. In the corner, the furnace door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. The inside wasn't empty. Curled up where the pilot light should have been was the yellowed animal hide from the box. But it wasn't just a hide anymore. It was moving, pulsing slowly, like something was breathing beneath it. Suddenly, a sound behind me. I spun around. Standing in the shadows was a figure, tall and gaunt. It was shaped like a man, but its limbs were too long. Its joints bent at unnatural angles. Its face was a shifting nightmare of shadows. But the eyes glowed with a faint, predatory light. It opened its mouth, and my own voice came out. A perfect imitation. "Told you it was just mice?" It took a step towards me, its movements jerky and wrong. Panic seized me. I remembered the old man's journal. The furnace kept them at bay. It reacted to lies because the Skinwalker thrived on them. My lies had been weakening the furnace's protection, inviting this thing in. I had to tell the truth. "No!" I yelled, my voice shaking. "It's not mice. It's you." I found the journal. "I know what you are." As the truth left my lips, the furnace roared to life, not with a groan, but with a deafening, furious bellow. A wave of intense heat erupted from its open door, blasting across the room. The creature shrieked, a sound that was a horrifying mix of a man-esque scream and an animal-esque cry of pain. It recoiled from the heat, stumbling back. The light from the furnace intensified, and the creature's shadowy form seemed to unravel, twisting and dissolving like smoke in a strong wind. It scrambled back into the darkest corner of the basement and vanished. Silence. The only sound was the crackling roar of the furnace and my own ragged breathing. The heat subsided, and the furnace settled into a low, steady hum. The animal hide inside was gone, torn it to us. We sold the house the next month. I never told Sarah the full story. I just said the house had foundation issues we couldn't afford to fix. As we drove away for the last time, I glanced back at the house. I couldn't be sure. I thought I heard a faint, metallic groan on the wind. A final sigh from the old furnace. Some truths are better left buried, and some places are better left alone. I know that now. The desert keeps its secrets. And I learned the hard way that you should never, ever lie when the walls themselves are listening. Thanks for tuning in to another story. If you enjoyed this journey into the darkness, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows. Stay safe out there, and always check your basements.